Section 7.8 in Chapter 7 is the last section, and we're going to be covering scientific notation. In technical work, you will often deal with very large and very small numbers that take up a lot of space to write. 5 nanoseconds is written as 0.00000005 seconds, and 1 kilowatt hour is equal to 3,600,000 joules of work. So rather than take up all that space to write all the zeros, we can use a shorthand, scientific notation, to express those numbers. In scientific notation, 5 nanoseconds would be 5 times 10 to the negative 9, and 1 kilowatt hour would be 3.6 times 10 to the 6 joules. A number in scientific notation is a product of a number between 1 and 10, that's the 3.6 part of 3.6 times 10 to the 6th, and a power of 10, that's the 10 to the 6th part of 3.6 times 10 to the 6th. The general format of a number written in scientific notation is p times 10 to the k, where p is a number less than 10 and k is an integer. The following are the 4 steps to convert a number to scientific notation. If a number is written without a decimal point, rewrite it with a decimal point. For 57,400, you would put the decimal at the end. The number 0.0038 already has a decimal, so you wouldn't have to do anything with that. Then place a mark, and I use the caret, which is the mark over the 6th key on your keyboard, after the first non-zero digit. In 57,400, 5 is the first non-zero digit, so you would put the mark between the 5 and the 7. For 0.0038, 3 is the first non-zero digit, so you would put the mark after the 3 and before the 8. Next, count the number of digits from the mark to the decimal point, which includes zeros, and note the direction, whether it's positive or negative. For 5 marked 7400 decimal, there are 4 digits after the mark in the positive direction, so plus 4, and for 0.003 mark 8, there are 3 digits between the decimal point and the mark in the negative direction, so negative 3. And last, place the decimal point at the mark and use the number of digits to the decimal, including the positive or negative sign, as the exponent for 10. For 57,400, that would be rewritten as 5.74 times 10 to the 4. You don't need to include the zeros because, remember, zeros aren't significant. And for 0.0038, you would rewrite that as 3.8 times 10 to the negative 3. And you can see that 5.74 and 3.8 are between 1 and 10, and the exponent on the tens are both integers. Sometimes you need to convert from scientific notation to decimal form. To convert a number from scientific notation to decimal form, shift the decimal the number of places indicated by the power of 10, shift to the right for a positive number and to the left for a negative number, and then add zeros as placeholders. When we convert 3.2 times 10 to the 4 to a decimal, the power of 10 is a positive 4, so we're going to move the decimal 4 places to the right to come up with 32,000. Converting 2.7 times 10 to the negative 3 to a decimal, we notice that the power of 10 is a negative 3, so we're going to move the decimal 3 places to the left to get 0.0027. In both cases, we had to add zeros as placeholders. Try the following problems before you look at the solution. Convert 1,960,100 to scientific notation. So we're going to place a decimal at the end of the number and then put a mark between the 1 and the 9, and we're going to count the places to the decimal. There are 6 places in the positive direction, so that will become the exponent on the 10. Put the decimal at the mark, and 1,960,100 in scientific notation is written as 1.96 times 10 to the 6th. Now let's convert from scientific notation to a decimal, 2.7 times 10 to the negative 3. We notice that the exponent on 10 is a negative 3, so we're going to count 3 places to the left and place the decimal, and we're going to use zeros as placeholders. So 2.7 times 10 to the negative 3 equals 0.0027. Now, multiplying and dividing in scientific notation. To multiply or divide numbers, use the rules from section 7.7 for multiplying and dividing exponents. So to refresh, a to the m times a to the n equals a to the m plus n. And notice the bases are both the same. They're both a. And a to the m divided by a to the n equals a to the m minus n. To multiply numbers written in scientific notation, we're going to work with the decimal and the exponent parts separately. A times 10 to the b times c times 10 to the d equals a times c, which is the decimal parts, times 10 to the b plus d, which is the exponent parts. So as an example, 26,000 times 3,500,000. First, we're going to rewrite each of them in scientific notation, and those are 2.6 times 10 to the 4 and 3.5 times 10 to the 6th. And now we're going to regroup. We're going to group the decimal parts and the exponent parts separately. So we're going to multiply 2.6 times 3.5 times 10 to the 4 plus 6, and that becomes 9.1 times 10 to the 10. Dividing, we're going to do it in a similar way. A times 10 to the b divided by c times 10 to the d. We're going to separate the decimal parts from the exponent parts, and we're going to divide a divided by c times 10 to the b minus d, because remember, when we divide exponents, we subtract. As an example, 45,000 divided by 0.0018. So we're going to rewrite first in scientific notation. 4.5 times 10 to the 4 and 1.8 times 10 to the negative 3. And we're going to regroup so we can work with the decimals and the exponents separately. 4.5 divided by 1.8 times 10 to the 4 minus negative 3. That equals 2.5 times 10 to the 7. Another way to think of this as a fraction, and you can split the fraction and you can come out with the same number. So stop the video and try this before looking at the answers. Rewrite in scientific notation 3.48 times 10 to the negative 4 divided by 8.7 times 10 to the negative 2. And then regroup and rewrite and come up with the answer 0.4 times 10 to the negative 2. Now, a word about calculators in scientific notation. If a very large or very small number contains too many digits to be shown on the display of your calculator, it will be converted to scientific notation. If you enter 6,480,000 times 75,000, your calculator is going to display 4.86 e to the 11. On your calculator, the e represents the 10 in scientific notation, so this is the same as 4.86 times 10 to the 11. If you want to enter numbers directly into your calculator in scientific notation, on the TI-8384 there is a second function key, EE. To access it, press the blue second function key on the upper left, then the comma key. It has a blue EE over it. So if you want to write 6 times 10 to the 4, hit the 6 key, the second key, the comma key, 4 key, and then enter.